Shalom and welcome again to another exciting edition of Torah Watchman Show International Corporation 501c3 company, hosted by none other than your favorite Cardi Jew, Hakam Ya'ar ben-Emmett. I hope everyone has had a wonderful day. God bless you. Thank you so much for my subscribers. Thank you for all the contributors. I invite all feedback. I don't censor anyone unless you're vile and rude. I've not had anyone do that. I had a Muslim person comment on one of my videos. I played fair with him. I gave him factual truth. This is what my name means, truth. And I will promise you, I will teach the truth on the Torah Watchman Show channel on YouTube whenever it's humanly possible. I have exciting content. I have regular Torah lessons, parshas, every single weekly cycle. You'll find that video by that parsha chapter name. I also have exciting videos about Jewish history, about Cardi history, about the difference between Cardiism and Orthodox. Hakam Ya'ar ben-Emmett, we're a Torah Watchman Show International, LLC, tax exempt 501c3 company. I want to introduce again the great and wonderful honor Scotty and Sheila Hall from the great state of Kentucky. They are bnei Noach. You know, they keep the 7 laws of Noach, just like the Ramban said to do. You know, they know the Torah through and through better than most rabbis I talk to. All kidding aside, no lashon hara intended. Why I say that? Because they listen to the prophets like Ezekiel when it talks about giving charity to DACA and all of this to the widows and orphans. Your sins are forgiven. If you say, I'm sorry, well, God trusts you with that because he see the witness with your hands handing out bread or something to someone who's starving or hungry, you know, and they're helping out so much. The Beseda synagogue in Uganda. So in a brief intro, I asked them to ask me several questions and I wrote a transcript. So let me stop talking for a moment and let's turn the cameras back on their handsome faces. So how's your day?
It's been pretty good. It's been a little busy today, but we've made it through.
Yeah.
Daddy. Yeah. How's your testing, Sheila, and everything?
Well, right now it's going okay. I probably won't find out anything for a little bit. I have to go through another test and then go back probably to the doctor and then they'll tell me. But I'm feeling much better and doing better, so I think it'll be all right.
I pray for you every morning with foolish shalima to you. I really do. I believe in prayer. And you know something else about giving charity? Not only does it forgive your sins and just hits the reset button with God and says, what you say you did last month? I don't remember anything. But it also attracts God and listens to people. Praying for other people means so much. You know, when they say when you cry, God listens, right? When you're on your knees and praying for someone, God listens. So when you give charity like you have been doing, God's obligated to keep his end of the bargain and the covenant because you're keeping that sworn covenant of him. And what's amazing about you, you know, I define you right now as bnei Noach, Noahides per se. That's not a slur word at all, you know. But you know, Sarah and Abraham, a blessed memory, were Noahides. All the Hebrews in Egypt were Noahides until they went to Mount Sinai and they had a hallelujah moment. And then they encountered the King of the universe and say, I give you my word. I give you the 10 commandments. I give you all the mitzvahs to keep. Do you agree? Yes, we agree, at least until the golden calf. But anyway, God blessed their souls, their nefesh, and just transformed them to the Jewish people. This is where you're at right now in a transitional point of teshuvah.
I think about the verse where it said he would take sickness from the midst of his people. So I try to concentrate on that. And, you know, I know that was a specific time, but, you know, it's good to know who my healer actually is.
Well, no kidding. No kidding. Physician, heal thyself. Read the Torah and you'll be healed. Right? Let's get started. I think, Sheila, you posed a question, the division of milk and meat, dairy and meat? That is an epic question. Here's my answer. It's actually rooted in the Torah, believe it or not. And
Mm-hmm.
they the verse here in Exodus or Shemot chapter 23:19, you'll find in Exodus 34 verse 26, Davarim or Deuteronomy chapter 14:21, essentially says, you will not boil a kid in its mother's milk. That's not talking about your son. You know, a kid is like a goat, right? So during the time that Moshe was warning the children of Israel in the wilderness, they were encountering Amalekites, they were encountering other tribal, polytheistic, warlike people. Eventually, they encountered the Philistines, the Canaanites, and all this. A lot of these warnings were actually for future generations of Jews after they would pass the River Jordan under Joshua's leadership and conquer the land of Canaan, because those Hebrew people actually did this, believe it. There's a law in Noahide about do not consume a leg or appendage of a living animal, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
these people actually did that. And so horrific, they would literally take a kid or a mother goat, they would milk it and boil the milk, and as soon as that baby is not even weaned, yet, they would boil alive in that milk
Mm-hmm.
and eat it. And it was a horrible, horrific thing. You know how much God puts preference on ethical treatment of animals, right?
Yeah.
I'm a member of PETA, people who eat tasty animals. But God loves animals. He put us in steward of all the animals since the Garden of Eden, right? You're talking about muzzle your ox and don't let the ox see if it's pulling a big cart of hay or something. Don't torment the animal. And even animals get a nice respite on Shabbat, right? But anyway, rabbinites do what they do best. I did not used to believe this because believe it or not, I used to be ultra orthodox myself. I had a streamer on my head. I wore a capote, a black coat. I wanted to be just like everyone else. I wanted to fit in, and I was going to that learning experience there. But anyway, when I started reading and learning Hebrew, I found out. And when I made that self-declaration 2 years ago, I want to be forever a Cardi Jew. Cardi Jews don't believe in the separation of milk and meat or dairy and meat. Again, rabbinites took these phrases out of context, and the tractate of Sanhedrin, that's all the halakha, of the Talmud is in the Sanhedrin, 2,000 years ago, the Sanhedrin, all those legal court, civil disputes and all of that. Well, they took these laws in there, and in the Talmud, that became their law book, not the Torah, and sometimes it took preference over what the Torah said because they implied, they didn't say that, but implied that the Torah did not explain everything needful for every generation. So what they did, they took that one verse, they forgot about the ethical treatment of animals. Most honest rabbis and scholars of Hebrew will say this. It has nothing to do, with separating dairy and meat. But what the rabbinites have done, they actually they actually in the Middle Ages they used to clock literally. They would set a clock and watch how long it would take for after a man ate a nice tasty, I don't know, rack of lamb or something, 4 hours, 6 hours, then he needs to go bathroom. So what they actually said, in 6 hours after you have a meat meal, you can have a dairy meal. Of course, you could cheat and have dairy before meat. Now, my house is configured kosher at 100%, and we do keep that because it makes sense. I used to be a meat butcher, believe it or not, Scotty. I used to be a meat butcher at an old grocery store in Louisiana, and I learned quickly that if you ever mix meat, bacteria from meat on the cutting board with cheese or fish or chicken, you can get deadly sick. I had to clean those boards off and sanitize them between each type of meat, especially dairy. So it makes sense to me. If you eat a bunch of meat, like a big cheeseburger or something else, the bacteria in that dairy and the bacteria in that meat may not agree with your stomach too much, right?
Wow, that's
Okay. Yeah.
interesting.
But going forth, my wife has a kitchen sink that's literally divided into two sections. When we moved in our house about 5 years ago, it was a kosher house. There's always been Jews there, and the dishwasher was broken. It would not work. It was a kosher dishwasher. You ever heard of such a thing? So they have a separate water supply for the top rack of the dishwasher and the bottom rack. So in other words, you can wash your meat dishes and pots and things apart from the dairy in separate areas and keep everything separate. When I actually used to go to online yeshiva until I figured out it was just teaching Talmud. It was not teaching me Torah. And it taught me a lot of this. You know, you have to literally clear a table if you want to keep these rules. And it's up to you. You have to clear the table between meat and dairy. Or if you have a very small house, you have some sort of dividing marker. You know, when you go to a grocery store and they put a little marker, you put a little divider between the items you bought and then the person behind you, so you don't mix that's what they do. But you know, I did some analysis on this. How much have you heard of what the word parv means? Every one of you? Parv?
Yeah, the part that's it's not neither. It's neither, is it? It's well, I don't know how to
Neither
explain
meat
it.
nor milk.
Yeah, there you go. Neither meat nor milk. It's kind of central or
Yeah,
something like that.
you can have consume parv food
Mhm.
between meat and dairy.
Yeah,
For instance, if you're eating meat, that actually has something like tofu, you know, something like based on sour cream or whatever, based on tofu. You can use that with your meat or whatever and chicken, whatever, and just fools your taste buds, you know.
yeah,
They use a lot of soybean and all this. It's a huge market that you'll see a little symbol. We're getting close to Pesach, and you'll see a lot of symbols there. Kosher for Passover, the parv symbol there. But would you want to take a guess, Scotty? How much money is in the kosher foods business? I guess we could say worldwide, but primarily I'd say the United States. How much money you think is in that industry?
I'm sure it's in the hundreds of thousands at the very least.
Well, I was surprised at this. In US dollars, it must be America, $82.55 billion dollars
Oh goodness.
projected between 2025 and 35 in the future. So they estimate it's going up about 5.9%. Now, I'm sure in the Middle Ages when the Talmud was actually finally canonized, taken out of parchment or scroll, that actually probably occurred 8th or 9th century, honestly. But when they actually agreed on the Talmud, the books and everything else, the breakouts of all that, you know, at that time it was a horrible situation. The Jews were scattered in diaspora in Europe, Asia, other places like this. They tried to kickstart the Sanhedrin again. It wouldn't work. You know, they were just forced to live apart from each other. Communities were greatly dispersed from each other. Didn't have any central governance per se, and they actually felt they would never be able to go back to Israel or Palestine at that time until the time of the machine, to the end of the day. So they said, what are we going to do? And I said, we are sinning against God for not having temple sacrifice, animal sacrifice. We're sinning against God for not having the red heifer. We're sinning against God for not living in Israel. So they said, I tell you, we're going to get a double mitzvah if we exaggerate on steroids. You will not boil a kid in his mother's milk and create something called parv, the magical food, right?
Mm,
Now, I like some of it, but who does not like you know, sour cream or cream cheese, whatever, not the skim milk stuff. You know, but who does not like that, you know?
yeah.
But the thing is that this is one of the reasons, not the only reason, that I left Orthodoxy, Orthodox rabbinical Judaism, as I call because it's nonsensical things. You know, like Rabbi Tobias Singer, he criticizes Christians for taking my Bible, the Jewish Bible, out of context, right? You've heard that, Sheila, all the
Yes.
time. I
Mhm.
just every time. But he never says anything about the rabbis, the sages, blessed memory, who wrote the Talmud, and they added, subtracted at will because they were
Yeah.
the law. They were the lawgivers, you know, and they added all these
different things. They wrote entire tractate based on this couple verses here about boiling you will not boil a kid in mother's milk. Why would anyone want to boil a baby, a suckling animal in its mother's milk when it's alive like that? There's actually laws, ethical laws, and at least in Judaism, and it's practiced in most places, you allow so many weeks, right?
Yeah.
My father was a cattleman. He had cows and things, and chicken, and you never separate a calf from its mother until it's weaned
Yeah.
before you take it to auction and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So the Torah again is absolute. From my mind, it's absolute. God expects you to have an ounce of common sense after you read the verses, like do not boil a kid in your mother's milk. A kid is not your son or daughter, of course. You're raising goats and sheep and everything else, and of course you call a mother goat different than a male goat and all this. But everyone knows this. We're talking about a female mother goat who's able to bear young and be able to make milk for nursing, that kind of thing. You could research for this for yourself. A polytheistic tribal nation that time. I actually heard that the Philistine did this. It was a delicacy. And God said, I don't want you to be like the other nations. They're
Yes.
doing this. They're abusing animals. I love animals. I care about them, you know?
Mhm.
So that closes that question, unless you have any more feedback or notes or ideas about this.
No, I think it's pretty clear.
I liked what he said about the mixing of the bacteria.
Oh yeah,
That was
that
really
makes perfect
interesting.
sense as well.
I think that
Yeah, I
kind of
mean,
helped me understand it
a lot of
bit
people
better.
will say, well, you can't read it literal. Then another group says, well, you got to take it symbolically. And I'm, as you had said, I think it's clear. He doesn't want us to be confused. So read it as it says it and understand it in that way. I would think would be the most logical way.
Because God is not a helicopter parent, right?
Yeah.
He created us with free will, right? Free thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we make a lot of mistakes, but we go back to the Torah and says, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, please forgive me. Here's $100. Here, I'll pay you rent. You can't pay your rent. You're being foreclosed on. Even me, I know, quickly in a dot-com bust, I was out of work for about a year, and there was a rich man who retired in a golf course, and he actually, funded my family for almost a year, and I helped him by doing computer business for him and helped him. So everyone falls in their face sometimes, But in respect to milk and meat, it's a huge multi-billion-dollar business. I already told you about buying appliances that are kosher root. That means be very careful. You cannot use the same plate or vase or cup for both meat and dairy at the same time. In fact, my wife has them in separate places because in Passover, you have to be very, very careful with these things too. Now, we do it for tradition. It's actually fun. If you know the rules, you abide by the rules. But the reason why I do not go and encourage people to just break out, dairy and meat left and right, because you're gonna sin against God, you're breaking the law of Moses, is because it's not true. It's not true. The Ramadists made this up for various reasons of their own, and I already gave you. They're making a lot of money off of this.
Oh yeah. Very
How
true.
about the red heifer?
Oh Lordy.
What can you tell me about the red heifer? I mean, my grandfather had red heifers, but Scott,
Well, let me see the red heifer, if I understand right, the purpose of it is to let me see how did I know they burn it and they get the ashes from it and they mix it with water
Yeah.
and they use it to cleanse for the cleansing of the priests
Mhm.
and such when they were unclean, like if they've handled something unclean. And then I think the question most people always have is, well, in order to make it, they become unclean, so then they have to use it to become clean. And then, of course, there's always questions that today, you hear a lot about, oh, they have these perfect red heifers in Israel. They're building the third temple as we speak. And, so is that kind of what you understand?
You probably have done more research on that one than I have.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's kind of interesting to, we
I
just
just,
kind of like to
I didn't
find
know
out
if there was more insight into, like, it may be an opinion, or it may be, something we don't know on that particular, because, like, I think even Solomon wasn't it supposedly that he didn't even have an answer for sure as to, how it all worked in that one aspect.
Yes, I mean, red heifer was a very unique animal sacrifice, and its primary purpose was for purification rituals. Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
So, oh, you have an earthquake there?
I got
He's kicking the table. Sorry.
he got me in the
So
glass.
red heifer is not reddish or oranges. In fact, I read something in the Talmud that it cannot have more than a half a dozen black hairs or something in his ear or something. It has to be completely
Yeah.
red. You're absolutely right, Scotty. And
Mhm.
and Shiloh, the ancient worshiping place of Shiloh, a group of Jews, Levi, priestly people, or actually raising them. You may have read a report in 2022. They actually brought some red heifers from Texas, all at least, all places, and brought them to Israel and raised them and raised them. And if you mate together two perfect red animals, mother and father, male and female, and keep on doing that, and then you break out the spotty ones and all that, so you don't mate those, and you just look for the pure red. Eventually, you'll have a pure red herd of red heifers.
Mm.
Now the red heifer was very important back in the ancient Israel time, up in King Solomon, until the temple was destroyed. But you can imagine in Canaan, right? You can imagine all the battles, all the dead bodies, all the corpses, all the bones and skeleton. You're walking down a path or road or something, you see a leg bone sticking up out of the ground or something like that. Because so many people died, right? There's so many wars of people. So, especially a high priest or levy, if you touch a part of a corpse or a bone fragment or something like that, you would be ceremonially unclean, okay, for about a week. And the red heifer was a remedy for that. It was a national remedy because in Yom Kippur, it provided coverage for every single Jew in tribal Israel that time. Now, like you said, Scotty, they took the red heifer outside of the tent of meeting, outside the Mishkan, the tabernacle. It was only animal sacrifices, but not put on that big ascension altar, the big brazen four-horn altar. They took it outside of that and they burned it completely. They extracted some of the blood with wool and they stained it with the wool and took cedar and they burned it and they collected all the ashes in several vases and they stirred it with a cedar and they closed it up with it. And then they brought it to, and they had to cleanse themselves. After doing this, they were unclean too. So after that week or whatever, cleansing, whatever, they eventually brought it to the temple and they would turn toward the people of Israel and everyone would be gathered around the tent of meeting there. And they would just spread the ashes in the air. This is what actually Jews want to do in Shiloh with this, but they were shut down by the government because Bibi did not want to break the status quo with the Grand Mufti in Jordan and cause a civil war with the Muslims.
Mm. Hmm. That's interesting.
So we are ceremonially, perpetually unclean as far as purification is concerned.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a boss in your home, especially before Shabbat, part of that ceremony prayer, of course. I fill it with filtered water, and we wash our hands in a three-way motion, and we say a prayer. We say a prayer of cleansing for that, and that is in memory of the red heifer and temple days. I went to a cemetery recently, and as soon as we left the cemetery, we washed our hands and said that prayer.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, very much.
Do you wash your hands before you eat, right? Soap?
Yeah, we do. And I knew that there was like you said, a symbolic. I thought it was symbolic, but it's probably more than that, I guess. But you're supposed to, have what do you call it, a dish of clean water, I guess, and
Yeah.
you're supposed to do that. And I can't say we've done that every time. I guess we didn't understand the 100% meaning of it.
On eBay, I found an antique, I think it was bronze vase. I mean, I don't know if they use that for boiling tea or coffee. Um, and we fill that with water, and we have a big glass basin underneath that, and we all go there and we rinse our hands in that water. And then we have a towel, we dry our hands, and we say the prayer, and then we can eat. Now, in the past, so many people blame the Jews for everything, the Black Plague, flu, COVID, everything else. The Jewish people wash their hands more than raccoons.
Yeah. It seems that there are things that have been done and then later science catches up.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Yeah.
Just like the meat and the milk thing, where you were explaining the bacteria and then the hand washing ended up being a very healthy thing. And, they were doing that.
Yeah, I believe that if I understand right, the Hebrews had much less issues with like the viruses and stuff
Yeah,
back in the ancient times than other people, and it's because they were very clean people.
yeah.
They washed their hands, they did their cleansing and such, and were, your what do you call them, heathens? Anyway, the other people, didn't know that.
Well, we were
So,
as heathen as you get. I mean, honestly, I was raised, in the church, and of course, we were just taught. Unfortunately, Paul's thing was confusing, and I started finding out that they didn't even consider calling it food unclean animals, and
yeah,
mom was a single mom and raised us, and my grandmother, um, she fried everything in lard.
yeah.
And so I grew up, you know, we didn't know anything. I mean, I had the whole Gentile mindset, and we've really come a long way. I mean, we do the blessings. We first quit eating the wrong animals,
Mhm.
and then we learned from you there were still certain parts of the steak we weren't supposed to eat. So then we kind of been working more toward that, and that's one reason we had the question about different things, because like I said, I was raised as, you know, in, the typical, I guess you would consider like every church that's on the corner,
Yeah.
and most majority of around here misunderstood if there was anything good about what Paul said at all. And thought he was saying everything was clean, you can eat whatever you want, and so that's
Well,
what
he
my
would be
family
he
all
would be
thought.
kosher for certain people when it's
Yeah.
needful, and then other people he would eat lobster and shellfish and things like this.
Yeah.
He's like a chameleon. He would be all
Hmm.
things to all people, so he may win their souls or whatever.
Yes, I
He
remember
did,
that.
but he was a Pharisee of Pharisees too.
Yeah.
It's,